Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Debt Hotline. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks, everyone who's tuning in live for watching. We're really excited for tonight's episode. We're really excited for the topic that we'll be discussing today and our special guest. Our topic for the Debt Hotline today is how to choose the right path out of debt. We're having a Q&A with the CEO of Relief Strategies named James Farias. Did I say your name right, James?
It was very close. It's James Farias, actually.
James Farias. Okay, got to get that emphasis right. Thank you so much. So, James Farias, he's the CEO of Relief Strategies. I wanted to take a minute to introduce him, but before I get into that, I also wanted to introduce myself. My name is Hannah Locklear. I am a part of Team Solo. We host this podcast twice a week where we answer real questions from real people about debt. And we can help you at Solo respond to a debt lawsuit if you've been sued. We can also help you settle your debts for less and resolve your debts with the help of technology. So anyone who's watching, again, if you are watching or listening in, if you have questions about debt, you can call the Debt Hotline at 801-613-8181 and submit your questions via voicemail. We respond to those questions every single week, and we love to try to help point people in the right direction. Before we jump into things too, I wanted to say that I am not an attorney, neither is James, as far as I know, right, James?
I'm not an attorney. No, thank you.
Okay, maybe you never know. Some people have those hidden tricks up their sleeves, but neither of us are attorneys. We do know quite a bit about the debt industry and whatnot. So, James is especially an expert in this space. But anything that we share today, any answers to any questions we share, please don't take them as legal or financial advice. They're just resources and information to try to help point you in the right direction and provide educational resources, like I said. So, that being said, James, welcome to the Debt Hotline. Thank you so much for joining. I wanted to give a little intro, and then maybe you can fill in any gaps that I may have missed. So, James is the founder and CEO of Relief Strategies, where he helps people get out of debt through transparent, strategic solutions like settlement, federal student loan support, and credit rebuilding. He has more than 30 years of experience in leadership, team building, and sales operations, and he has dedicated his recent work to transforming how people approach debt relief. His focus is on clarity, honesty, and long-term success. So James currently leads Relief Strategies to shift the conversation surrounding debt and make it less intimidating, more human, and rooted in real results. James, can you fill in any gaps that I might have missed and tell us a little bit more about what you do at Relief Strategies and how Relief Strategies works for its users?
Yeah, that was a great introduction. It's almost like we know each other. That's so perfect, Hannah. I appreciate that. For me, debt is such a personal topic, and I feel like it's probably that way for everybody else. I got into the financial services space actually as a life insurance agent quite a few years ago, primarily helping teachers with their retirement and things of that nature. At the time, I had 6 kids and I was coaching high school football. And so this was like a perfect fit for me. I was already in the ecosystem. I knew a lot of teachers. I knew a lot of coaches. But as I started actually trying to help them, what I found was that the people who needed the help the most often had the ability to be helped or help themselves the least. And most of the time, it's just because they were just drowning in debt. Between federal student loans, a lot of these teachers are coming out of pocket for themselves, funding their own classrooms and things of that nature. And a lot of them are doing it on credit cards very often, especially as young teachers. And so as I was trying to help them put money away for the future, it was hard sometimes for me to be helping them, showing them things that might help them put away like 4, 5, 7% a really good year, when I knew that they're just getting crushed by 20, sometimes 30% debt on the back end. And so it was important for me to try to find a solution that would resonate with this demographic specifically, and for everybody that's saddled with debt, to be able to find a way to get out of debt in a way that's not embarrassing, that's welcoming and open, and doesn't make them feel shame. And unfortunately, I'm sure that you folks deal with this too, since you play in the settlement space. Even when you're doing everything right, you're often looked at as a scam. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff out there that calls settlement a scam, and they'll explain it correctly while they're doing it because there's so much misinformation out there. So trying to make the information more accessible, more interesting, more entertaining, less embarrassing, things of that nature, that's kind of been the focus of what we've been trying to do.
Perfect. And can you tell us, James, what it might look like for a typical user at Relief Strategies to actually use the platform and engage with your workers and find those relief strategies?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a full-fledged website. There's a lot of information on there. It's pretty informative. I write a lot of the topic. I try to write a topic every week and tie it to current events. I don't get to every week. I didn't write one this week, of course. But aside from that, on the site itself, there's a lot of information that will help them. And then when they reach out to us, the first thing they'll get is actually that they're going to talk to an AI interface, to be honest with you. And this is something we're playing with because I feel like debt is so hard for some people to talk about. Sometimes they just want to see, like, is this something I can even get help with before they like talk to a real person? So we'll have an AI that will reach out to them. It's very human-like, but it's not human. It will tell them that it's not human, and that'll kind of go through like, is it even a really good fit for them? And if they find that their solution, their situation is a good fit for some of the offerings we have, then they can set an appointment and or be transferred live and actually talk to somebody live. So for us, we have a lot of technology on the back end. But most of it is live interaction with a human to get them through the end of the process once they find out that they're a good fit.
And what types of strategies does Relief Strategies offer for debt relief?
Yeah, great question. So our primary solution is debt settlement. However, we can help people with consolidation. We can help people with credit repair, and of course, separate from settlement. There's the consequences are separate. It's not settlement, but federal student loans. We do a lot of work in the federal student loan world too.
Perfect. So I think a very common question in the debt space for people dealing with debt, especially multiple, lines of debt or multiple lines of credit. I think a very common question is, what is the best debt relief path for me in my particular situation? And obviously, there are so many factors that play into it. But it seems like Relief Strategies is a really great resource out there to help you figure out what the best strategy could be for you and your particular situation. Would you agree?
I might be a little partial, but yes, I do agree. It is important for us to inform and educate people. So anytime somebody is going through the process of finding out a settlement would be the right fit for them, we do educate them on all of the things that are available, even things that we can't help them with, just to make sure that one, they know, and two, that they have access to the information to go find out the other resources if it's a better fit for them. Because settlement is not for everybody. And I think that's where a lot of the outfits get into trouble. And I think that's where a lot of like the bad negative press comes from, is people trying to put a square peg in a round hole. If you don't educate the people and let them know what's going on or what's available out there, and you just force them into a settlement program and they don't really understand the ramifications, like there is a very good hit unless their credit is already, really bad, that they're going to take a hit to their credit. And that it's like a topic that everybody's so afraid to talk about for some reason. So finding the right solution is important, and understanding the ramifications is important. Somebody that's looking for settlement is somebody who's already thinking about or has, bankruptcy on the mind. It's not somebody who's like, man, things are getting tight. They might be looking for like more of like a debt management plan, or they might even be in a world where a consolidation is the right option for them, where they can just get a single loan to pay off all their debts and then pay the loan off, which is also a viable option for a lot of people if their credit is still strong and they're catching it early enough and things of that nature. So, and some people, no matter how dire it is, unless they're willing to give up a lot of things, settlement and bankruptcy is off the table because of things like the job they have that prevents it. So, there are a lot of, I wish there was an easy, matrix that could say, if this much debt and this many lines, this is the option for you. But really, every one of these situations is really personal. It's important that you work with somebody that understands the nuances and can help guide you in the right direction.
Very well said. Yes, there are so many nuances, and it's important to get connected with the right people, organizations, resources, and tools to help figure out what's best for you in your particular situation. And that's actually a great segue into some of the questions we've received from real people regarding these topics. Let's go ahead and jump into some questions if that's all right with you, James.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do it.
Awesome. So our first question comes from Samantha in California. She says, I'm $42,000 in debt, mostly credit cards and an old personal loan. I've been researching settlement, but I keep hearing conflicting information. Some say it wrecks your credit. Others say it's better than bankruptcy. How should I know what's right for me?
Yeah, it's funny. We were just talking about that credit hit and all of that. So for settlement, I would say that the first thing is understand like how much debt you have, how much income you have, and make whatever cuts to expenses you can to get to like that absolute bare minimum number to decide like how big the problem is. But if that's where we're at, where we do understand our problem and we do need a solution, I guess it's important to understand that most people who are thinking about settlement, they probably already have taken hits to their credit, right? Like most of them already have like a really high debt to income ratio, or they have really high utilization, or they might have already started missing payments, or maybe even be in collections, right? So, should we be concerned that we're going to take a credit hit? You're going to take a credit hit unless your credit is really bad. That's kind of a given, and it's important to understand that. But if you're coming to me with several collections and missed payments and whatnot, your credit hit is going to be different than somebody who just woke up with a 750 and realizes like, I just got laid off, and if I don't make a change immediately, like I'm about to jump off a cliff. I drive off a cliff, not physically, but with my finances. So it's important to understand like the better off you are when you start, kind of the further you have to fall. But it's also important to understand that if you're trying to really get out of debt, there's got to be a trade-off, right? These creditors are giving up the amount of money you owe. The trade-off is you're going to take a temporary hit to your credit. Now, determining which solution is the right solution for you really comes down to like how much debt you have and how long a time frame you're looking at. Bankruptcy, if you're insolvent, if you're upside down, we always recommend bankruptcy. We do a cash flow analysis for people. If they're upside down, we won't put them in a settlement plan. It doesn't do them any good. They have to either fix their income side, or they really ought to just go look at bankruptcy if that's the case, if you're insolvent. Because then you're likely to qualify for a Chapter 7. You're likely to have your debts absolved, and then you just deal with a 10-year credit hit. But if you're in that big of a problem, the credit hit is not the thing you're worried about. Now, if you're right before that stage and you're in over your head and you're trying to avoid bankruptcy, settlement is a phenomenal way to not have a 10-year hit, to be able to pick and choose which lines of credit you really need the help with and not have to put everything in, and to not have a plan that's monitored by a court, and telling you what you can or can't do. But again, you're still going to take a credit hit. I mean, so it's not really about am I going to, you're going to. It's really about the degree to which it's going to occur. And that comes down to if you're doing bankruptcy or settlement, and of course, where you start when you enter into whatever program you choose.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that will affect how your credit gets hit when you settle a debt for less. Usually, debt settlement, most sources online say that your score will drop maybe around 100 points when you settle a debt. However, settling a debt will not look as bad on your credit report as a delinquent debt. So unpaid debt is probably the worst thing that you can have on your report. That along with like a debt in collections. So again, settlement will affect your credit score, and it probably won't have like a positive impact, but nothing will be worse than an unpaid delinquent debt.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share a resource here in the description and in the live chat for those watching. It's a blog post on our website, solosuit.com. The title of the post is If I Settle with a Collection Agency, Will It Hurt My Credit? So you can learn a little bit more about it there and what actually makes up your credit score. And hopefully that's a helpful resource as well. Awesome. Let's see. Let's jump to the next question. So this one is from Juan in Texas. It says, I just got laid off and I'm sitting on $18,000 in credit card debt. I've been making my minimum payments, but now I can't even do that. What should I do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Kind of like with the previous, that was at Samantha, I believe in California. One of the biggest things is make sure you get a hold of your finances, see if there's anything you can do to cut expenses, and maybe even something you can do to earn some more money. I mean, people sell things on eBay, things of that nature, to try to make ends meet. But at the end of the day, if it is the case that you're at that wit's ends and there's nothing you can do, I would say the most important thing is to communicate with your creditors first, quickly. Don't wait. The longer you sit on it, the worse it's going to be for you. A lot of times, the creditors will have ways for you to defer payments, or come up with some kind of structured payment plan where they'll put the debt on the end of your a debt or things of that nature, where it won't even necessarily really impact your credit, or it'll be much like lesser impact on your credit. But at the end of the day, if you're not able to do that, then you might need to start looking at something like a debt management plan, where you can get like a nonprofit involved. They can do some negotiating for you. They can't really negotiate your debts necessarily, but they might be able to help you with fees and interest and things of that nature, depending on how long and how bad this is going to be. And then again, depending on how long and how bad it's going to be, you might have to start looking at settlement or bankruptcy potentially. But I would start working with my creditors right away. And see like what options they have, because again, a lot of them have ways for you to defer, for you to pause payments, for you to come up with some kind of structured repayment plan to get back on board. Because at the end of the day, they don't want to sue you. They don't want you to go delinquent. They want to have a credit, client that's going to pay their minimums for the next 20 or 30 years or 50 years or however long you're going to be alive. That's the best outcome for all of them. So I would recommend you reach out to your creditors immediately and try to get some kind of leverage with them.
Yeah, I second that. I think the communication is key in situations like this. So, Juan, in your situation, definitely contact your creditor, see what your options are, explain your situation, and make sure that you're transparent about it all so that they understand and see what options they have for you, because most creditors will work with you, especially in a situation where you've been laid off and you can't afford the minimum payments. So, communication is key. Totally second that. Awesome. Yeah. Well, we've got some questions coming in on the live chat, so I'll go ahead and share some of those. The first one is from Rosie Ramos. It says, if you're getting sued by a debt collector, but you're also getting emails from another debt collection agency for the same debt, what should you do? Okay, so this is a really great question, James. I think I could maybe speak to this one, and then we'll see if you have anything to add. So if you're being contacted by two different collection agencies about the same debt, you're definitely going to want to ask them to validate the debt. If you've been sued by one, I would probably prioritize responding to that lawsuit so that you can avoid a default judgment and give yourself time to work out a plan, whether it's fighting the debt in court or trying to settle it before your court date. Definitely prioritize the lawsuit. But in the meantime, you may also consider sending a debt validation letter to the other collection agency and just communicating with them and letting them know, hey, I'm already being contacted about this same debt by someone else. In fact, I've been sued for it. Why are you contacting me as well? And that might get them off your back. James, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's great. Absolutely. I know it can get tough when you have multiple people trying to collect on the same debt. But at the end of the day, they have to verify they have the right to collect. So I would start there. And especially if you have the original creditor trying to collect from you and a collection agency, definitely want to verify who has the right to actually collect before you start paying anybody.
For sure. And if you have been sued for debt, we can help you respond to the lawsuit. And again, buy yourself some time to work out a plan. You can go to solosuit.com to create a personalized legal document that you can file with the court. And in fact, we at Solo will file it for you to help you defend yourself, protect your rights, and again, figure out your plan and your next steps with the lawsuit, whether it's trying to settle before your court date or trying to go all the way through and fighting it if you feel like the debt is not valid. So great question from Rosie. Another question is from Anthony Gambino. This one says, if I make a payment arrangement with a law firm for the creditor, should it state that I am making payments on my credit report? So again, let me see. And Anthony, I think you're watching live, so if you could clarify a little bit, that might help us understand the question better. But it sounds like you've set up a payment arrangement. Maybe you were sued by a creditor, and you set up a payment arrangement with the law firm, and you're asking if that payment arrangement should be reflected on your credit report. Is that right? Let us know in the chat if that's what you mean. In some settlement cases, you can, as part of your agreement, you can have them outlined in your agreement that they will report the debt as settled, or they'll remove the mark on your credit report. So Anthony, that's maybe a question that you could ask the law firm directly, and just see if there's a way for them to, report to the credit bureaus that you're back on track with the payment plan. If you've settled the debt or they've forgiven part of it, that might be reflected on your credit report. Again, like we discussed before, when you settle a debt, it usually shows up as a mark on your report. However, I think this would be a question that you could directly ask the law firm and just see if there's a way for, as part of this agreement and this new arrangement, see if there's a way for them to report that to the credit bureaus and remove any negative marks associated with that debt. James, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say pretty much the same thing. Like usually there's not any kind of stipulation on the ongoing like month-to-month payments of like a repayment plan like that, unless it's in writing as part of the agreement. It does have to be marked as like paid as agreed or paid settled once it's done. That does have to be reported, but it doesn't always get reported during the journey. So like I'm saying, like work with your law firm and see if it's something that they can convince the creditor to do. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but it would have to be up to the creditor to do that.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Next question. Let's see if I can queue another one up. All right, next question is from Melanie in New Jersey. It says, I've been paying on a student loan for 13 years and still owe over $20,000. I heard there are federal forgiveness options. How do I know if I qualify, and who can I trust to help me apply?
That's a great question. For federal student loans, it's almost like settlement, really. It's kind of like your breaks. You can do this yourself. You can usually log into your own provider like Nelnet or Sloan or whoever it is. There's usually a place for you to be able to pretty clearly identify where you can apply for any income-driven repayment plans, or if you're a public servant loan forgiveness, things of that nature. Usually you can do it yourself. I know that some people get nervous around it. Some of the plans require annual recertifications, and there's some technicalities to that. So if you're looking for a servicer or a provider, check things like the BBB, look for FTC complaints and things of that nature to make sure that you're working with a reputable organization. But to be honest with you, a lot of that stuff can be handled by yourself if you log in and work through your servicer or provider.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more, James, about how Relief Strategies helps with federal student loan issues?
Yeah, so we actually work with a third-party vendor. TriPoint Alliance is one of our partners. They've been in the federal student loan space for a long time, and they work with the people we send over who have student loan questions or issues to determine things like what plans they qualify for, whether it might be income-driven repayment, which would be based on, married, unmarried, how much income, how many kids, things of that nature, or there are programs out there like the public service loan forgiveness, which is phenomenal. If a person is working in federal government or government at all at any level, they've got a .gov address. So teachers, fire, if they're a government fire, police, things of that nature, postal. There's a lot of really good programs for them. And so they'll just work to determine, and then our partner will actually take on the burden of filing the annual recertification for them, should they choose, so they don't have to worry about, making sure they get that paperwork in every single month. And then, just go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for explaining. It sounds like Relief Strategies could be a really good resource or tool for you, Melanie, in your situation. So you might want to head over to reliefstrategies.com and check it out.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you, Melanie. Absolutely.
Love it. Perfect. Let's see. Next question is from, it's actually another question that got submitted on before we went live tonight. However, it's a bit long, so I wasn't able to copy and paste it for the screen. So I'll just go ahead and read this one out. This question comes from John in Washington. It says, hi, I'm being sued by Discover Bank for unpaid debt. I was laid off during COVID and fell behind drastically paying the card and eventually was unable to make any payments. I was served a few months ago and filed an answer. A month later, I received documents and a notice to appear via telephone for a court date that's 6 weeks from now. The amount owed is $21,200. I called Discover Bank's attorney office and made a lump sum offer of $9,000. They counteroffered at $16,000. I'm not able to make a lump sum payoff at $16,000, and I called them to ask if they would consider lowering the amount, but they refused. Should I reach out to them again with a maximum offer, possibly $10,000, or would I do better to file for arbitration? Discover has a clause in an effort to possibly lower the debt from 16,000. Okay, so John, it sounds like they've already offered you a deal, cutting down what, more than $5,000 on the debt. So that's actually, not bad. And keep in mind, since Discover is a bank, they may have access to some of your financial information and know realistically what you could afford to pay at this moment. It sounds like they're being really hard and not budging. But if you can go up slightly, I think it could be a good idea to maybe see if they would accept something a little bit higher and see if they're willing to budge, if you budge a little bit. However, I think like the most important thing is don't go into an agreement for something that you can't afford. So if you really truly realistically cannot afford the $16,000 lump sum payment, like don't sign any agreement that you're going to pay that off. I would also say that if you are trying to settle the debt, you could talk to them and see what your options are for monthly payments. And you could break it up into monthly payments if that's a little bit more manageable. But again, if they're already agreeing to cut off like $5,000 from the debt amount, um, that's not horrible. Obviously maybe they could do better. And again, I would echo that if you can't afford the $16,000, definitely don't accept it. Keep trying to negotiate, see if they're willing to budge, especially if you show that you're willing to budge a little bit. James, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I would say I have to concur. The monthly payment thing, some places do take it. One caveat to that, just to keep in mind, is usually it's going to be at a higher rate, a higher overall rate. So a lot of times, just to put it in rough numbers, a bank will take an 80% settle. I'm sorry, like a 60% settlement if you're going to pay everything today. But it might be an 80% settlement if you're going to try to make it over the course of like a year or 2 years. And I also feel like most banks don't want to do anything more than about a year. I've seen some do out to a couple of years, but a lot of them don't want to do more than a year because they feel like the default rate is going to be high on anything past that. And again, that's one of the things that is beneficial to like a settlement plan is it allows for a person to make payments into an account, not payments. Let me rephrase that. Not get us in trouble, but make deposits into a bank account that they control and that the negotiators can use, so that they're not necessarily having to come up with $5,000 today. They can make $600 a month for the next 5-6 months, and then have a lump sum payment to make towards a settlement agreement, and then allow attorneys to kind of fend off some of the calls and the negotiations while the account builds up. So that is kind of the power of settlement for people that can't do it themselves, and they can't afford a lump sum payment today.
Yeah, I also want to add to that at Solo, we also offer a different option for people who want maybe to try settlement at a different rate and route. So we have a tool called Solo Settle that helps people negotiate and settle debts online through our online negotiation platform. And it helps you protect your legal rights. It connects you with collectors and creditors and law firms so that you can negotiate all online without having to do phone calls. It also helps you avoid, defaulting further on your payments like a typical debt settlement company or program might look. Again, those programs can be really helpful depending on your situation. But if you're looking for another option, Solo Settle can help you settle the debt outright without having to go into default, save up, and then try to settle later on. You can kind of expedite the process on the platform, do it all digitally, avoid going to court, avoid phone calls, and just kind of digitize the settlement process altogether. So that's another option. You can check it out at solosuit.com/solo settle. All right. Next question comes from Tracy in Virginia. She says, do I have to pay collections? If I don't, can they sue me? The answer is yes, Tracy. They can sue you if they have the legal right to do so. And if you go long enough without paying, there is a very good chance that they will sue. It also depends on, how much you owe. Like, if you owe a couple $100, they might not see that as worth going to court over. However, if it's in the thousands, in most cases, if you go long enough without paying a collection agency, they will sue you. James, any thoughts on that?
No, that's spot on. I mean, the only thing I would say is challenge their right to collect. That is the one out you might have, because they do have to have the original signature and documentation and things of that nature to be able to show that they have the right to collect the debt. So just because they say they have the right to collect doesn't mean they do. But if they do have the right to collect, and it's more than a couple $100, we've seen some down as low as like a couple $1,000, $1,500. Sometimes they will take you to court to try to get a judgment against you to be able to collect the other means. So yes, I would address it. I wouldn't let it sit.
Amen to that. Don't let it sit. Take action, figure things out. Don't ignore it. I think lack of action is probably the worst choice that you can take when it comes to debt situations. So just figure out your options. Like, if you don't think you should have to pay this collection agency because the debt isn't valid, then look into your options, ask them to validate the debt. But if you know that you owe the debt and you just avoid it, things are probably not going to end well in your favor. So something to think about for sure.
It's funny you say that. Just small sidebar here, sorry. Making this conversation more accessible. So my team back a couple years ago came up with, we want to come up with a mascot, and our mascot is an ostrich, and her name is Ollie. Because we feel like that is exactly what everybody does. They just put their head in the sand when it comes to like addressing debt. And we're actually working on a whole cast of characters because we're going to be coming up with like these, I don't know, like cartoons for kids, basically, to try to teach debt concepts to make them easier. So I just thought it was funny that we're talking about like people avoiding this conversation and not trying to contact their creditors, because that is literally the heart and soul of our mascot and our messaging. Because I feel like that's exactly what people do.
So the Ollie the ostrich is Relief Strategies mascot.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah. Great mascot. Yeah, I think I just echo, it's really important not to bury your head in the sand if you're dealing with debt. Communication is key, like we've said before. And in many cases, collectors, creditors, law firms, everyone will work with you. You just have to be open and honest about your situation. And, just address it. Don't ignore it.
100%.
Cool. Well, I think we've got time for one more question. This one is from Noah let's see. So this question comes from Noah in Illinois. It says, I've got about $12,000 in debt spread across 4 different cards, and I'm only making minimums. I also just had a baby and things are tight. What's the lowest risk way to get ahead without damaging my credit?
Man, that's new parenting. That's always a joy, and a whole bunch of new things like your finances for sure. I just became a new grandparent, as a matter of fact, just like 2 weeks ago. So,
congratulations!
Thanks. Yeah, congratulations to Noah in Illinois. I would say, be same thing as we've addressed before. We always want to start with our own expenses, see if there's things that we can cut out of our spending and whatnot to tighten up as much as possible. And then beyond that, just get really serious about how you're going to pay your debt off. It sounds like he's probably not in like trouble yet. He just wants to make sure he doesn't get in trouble. So, maybe use the avalanche method, maybe use a snowball method, either pick, the smallest debt, pay it off aggressively, use the extra money to pay off the next smallest debt aggressively, or, pick a high interest card, the one that's costing you the most, and really, put everything extra you have to paying that off to get rid of that extra interest payment every month. And then as you pay that off, roll that extra money into the next debt until you pay it off. Do your best not to put new things on the credit card and things of that nature. I think if you're really diligent about not putting new stuff on there, shopping within your limits, assessing your current expenditures, and then be really diligent about paying off, coming up with a plan to pay off your debts. I mean, you could probably do it with no damage. If you find that you are in hotter water, it sounds like maybe you could use Solo's plan to do some negotiating on your own, or get with like a nonprofit debt management plan type organization that might be able to help you get your finances straight without too big of a hit to your credit before you need something like a real settlement or a bankruptcy or something like that.
I echo what you say about not adding more more purchases to the credits that you already have open, or the lines of credit that you already have. Definitely, as you're trying to pay off the debts, avoid excess spending for sure. But again, if you just had a baby, things are tight, maybe you're struggling to make ends meet, you can contact your different creditors across those different 4 credit cards and see what your options are. See if there's an option to like lower a minimum payment. That might affect your credit score, but it probably wouldn't affect it worse than going delinquent. So that's something to think about as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I think it's about time to wrap things up. James, thank you so much for joining. And I did want to just say before we wrap things up today that today is the last day of a giveaway that we're hosting at Solo. It's the In Debt Independence Day giveaway that we've been running this July to celebrate Independence Day.
Nice.
We're trying to help someone end their debt. So if you're watching, please go ahead and enter. I'll share the link here on the video for those watching live. And if you're interested in entering, you can go to solosuit.com/giveaway. The giveaway ends actually this evening, so it's the last time that you can enter to win $4,700 to help pay off your debt. $4,700 is the average amount that people get sued for on the Solo platform. So it was just a way for us to say, hey, let's help someone maybe potentially resolve their lawsuit and pay off their debt. So again, sharing this link here, solosuit.com/giveaway. Today's the last day to enter. James, do you have any other final thoughts or anything else you want to say about relief strategies or the work that you do or the topic at hand?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. It's such a small, big world out there. I think it's so interesting that you folks reached out to me for this opportunity because you've been on my radar for a couple of months now, actually, being that we run in the same space. So I think it's exciting that there are other ways to approach this topic to help people that want to be met in different places, that are willing to do it themselves or willing to have the help, but and willing to do it the right way. Because I feel like there are so many people that are willing to take shortcuts in their attempts to help people that really tarnish the industry, that the industry really needs more people that are willing to actually do the work to help the industry, to help the people get out of debt. And so, thank you very much for having me, and thank you for everything that you folks do out there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, James, and ditto to you. Everyone watching, please check out reliefstrategies.com if you have questions about finding the best strategy to help you resolve your debt. It's a great resource for you. So again, reliefstrategies.com. And if you have any questions about debt, please give us a call at the Debt Hotline. The number again is 801-613-8181, and we respond to these questions twice weekly on our podcast. So thanks again, James, for joining. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to everyone who tuned in live to watch live. Just know that Solo is rooting for you, and Relief Strategies is also rooting for you. We know that you can find a solution to your debt.
Absolutely.
Okay, everyone. Thank you.